Okay, because there's so many like arena directs coming up, I decided to kind of make a video about just kind of like warm up exercises, way to think about them, ways to participate in them, stuff to keep in mind when you play them. And I think the first thing I want to touch on is the way that rares change the format. So like a lot of Magic players will sort of have a feeling of when they're ahead or behind in a game, um, but I think it's pretty warped and sealed. So like a common sealed experience is somebody will think, oh, I'm pretty far ahead. Then their opponent plays a bomb rare and they lose, and then they're like frustrated, like, man, I was so ahead, but they had that dumb rare, and now I lost. But the thing to keep in mind is that what I've realized from playing a lot of sealed is that it was happening to me so much that I just realized my sense of when I was ahead and behind was just not like appropriate for sealed. Like when you start feeling ahead in sealed, I think a good question to ask is like, okay, if my opponent had a really good bomb, then how would I want to sequence my cards to try and give myself the best chance to beat that bomb? You know, if you think you have most other bases covered. And the reason um, that matters is like in most formats, when you start feeling ahead, people start getting a little bit more conservative and cagey. Like they'll be like, oh, I want to leave back a blocker so that I don't randomly die to a haste creature. Or they'll be like, I don't want to develop to the board because what if my opponent has a board wipe? Then, whatever. Like a common example in sealed is in Tarkir Dragonstorm, there was a lot of 8 mana bomb, like very expensive bombs, like Jeskai Revelation, whatever. So like it would be common that your opponent's not really playing spells because they're trying to cast like a 7 or 8 mana bomb. So you're like, oh, my opponent's so behind on board, I don't need to develop my board because then I could lose to a board wipe. And then your opponent plays then you play a little bit slower, and then your opponent plays Ugin, and you're like, oh, I can't beat Ugin. Oh, it makes sense. That's why they weren't like developing to the board. Same was Craterhoof Behemoth or whatever. So there'll be times when you're like, oh, I'm ahead because my opponent's not getting on board, and then they just play like some crazy shit like a Wan Shi Tong or a Jeskai Revelation, whatever. Um, and yeah, so I think that's pretty important. I found that really helped me play sealed because it made me like be kind of more aggressive. Depends on the format, but yeah, helped me. Like I was just feeling way too often. Like I thought I was ahead, my opponent would play a bomb, I would lose, and then I realized like, okay, if I feel like I'm ahead, now I start asking, what if they have these best bombs in the colors, and that can actually change the way you sort of sequence cards. It might make you more aggressive, right? Like if you're like, okay, I'm ahead, but what if my opponent has a Jeskai Revelation? Stuff like that tends to make you play a little bit more aggressively, in a sense. So that's most of what I would say about the rares. And obviously, the rares of your particular format, can matter to get a kind of a sense of them. Like the Tarkir Dragonstorm was a very big deal that there's a lot of 8 mana rares, and this will kind of tie into the second point about like knowing the board wipes in the format. Like in Avatar, Black had 2 board wipes at the rare plus level, so like a good amount of your black deck, your opponent's decks in black, like maybe 10, 20, 25%, I don't know, would have like a board wipe in them. Um, it's kind of like a weird thing because obviously a board wipe is a particular rare, but it does matter to know what board wipes are in the format. I mean again, this is kind of like a basic tip that's just like useful to know, like kind of like knowing what flash like instants and flash creatures are in the format, because when your opponent passes to you, they print more flash creatures these days. I think like one of the most trolling uh, blowouts I got is when I kind of half lazily searched what all the instants were, and then my opponent had a mirror pool crab because it didn't show up on my search because it was a channel ability, and I could have played the land. But anyway, um, basically what I'm trying to say is like you can have a second monitor that has like try and get all the instants and flash creatures up. Maybe have it on your phone, um, because it's going to happen a lot. Especially like if anybody played Marvel, there was a lot of white flash creatures in that set, and it was really helpful to just keep in mind the kind of stuff that could be rather than just obviously aimlessly running your stuff into it. The same as board wipes. It's more about when like the knowing what board wipes are legal is more about knowing not when to play around board wipes, but when you can just absolutely not care, right? Like if you just know for a fact there's no whiteboard, like if you know there's no board wipes in the format, you can just play so much more. You can just play out all your creatures without a care in the world. Whereas like if you're playing a format with Avatar and there's 2 black board wipes, then or like it'll happen. There'll be these games where the like what it's most helpful for is that they're like I was saying, they're games when your opponent's draw is pretty bad, and sometimes when your opponent's draw is pretty bad or they're not really playing to the board, then you might be like, oh, what if they have board wipes? But like if you just know that the colors don't have board wipes, then you don't even need to spend any effort. Then you can just play out your cards. Whereas like if your opponent just like hasn't cast any spells, and it's like the 5th turn, then you might be like, maybe I shouldn't play a creature. What if they have a board wipe? So it's just about streamlining. So that's just like a very basic tip. Just like know the flash creatures, the instance board wipes. Obviously, sometimes there's bonus sheets, so those are extra troll board wipes. Um, then okay, let me see because these are kind of okay. I guess I'll talk about the pace of play thing. So one of the big dynamics of Arena Directs compared to most events is that people might have a feeling of like, oh, more volume, more games, right? Like you're playing a game or you're building a pool, and if you're taking a while to build a pool, you might be like, man, I wish I just hopped into a game. I would get more runs in, right? Or you're playing a game, and the kind of situation that might happen is you have a line that's 100% to win, but it would take 5 minutes to play out, or you have a line that's like 99.5% to win, but it would then the game's over the next turn, right? Um, it's actually very pernicious because I've noticed that like at least for myself, my like your brain kind of wants you to not think as much. Like the brain kind of wants to relax, right? So like if you're in a situation where you can be like make a play that's 99.5% to win this turn, or play 5 extra minutes for the 100% line, it like there's a bit like the tug of war in your brain is gonna be like, man, like you don't want to spend 5 minutes thinking this all through. Just go for the 99.5% line. And obviously it depends on the context, right? Because like imagine if you're watching the World Championship finals, and then in that situation, then it's kind of obvious. Oh yeah, you should obviously go for the 100% line, and spend the extra time. And if like the person does the 99.5% line, and then like, oh, they actually had the 100% line, right? So I guess I'm just trying to frame it that like it's the way you're kind of valuing the win rate in these events, right? Because obviously, if it's the World Championship finals, or what I notice the most is like when people play win-and-ins, people will like slow down a lot, or they'll get really nervous, or they'll be like, okay, I really need to go for the 100% lines, not the 99.5% lines, because they value the games more. But sometimes because people don't value these specific Arena Direct games that much, they'll be like, I don't want to think for an extra, 20 seconds. I'm going to go for the faster line. But the way I kind of thought about it, at least for myself, it gives me more endurance. Is I'm just like, okay, my goal is to get a high. I want to try and get as high win rate as possible by the time the event's over. So I don't mind if I take an hour to build a pool. I don't mind. I try to like play as slow as possible to get the extra win rate because I find that it just keeps morale up. Like, I'll talk about morale more later, but sometimes if you consciously make a play that's like 0.5% to lose and then you lose a match, it can be a little bit tilting or discouraging. Um, but and then you'll be like, yeah, next you might think, well, next time I'll just do the 100% line. Like, why did I do that? I mean, obviously, again, it depends on your character. If you're somebody who you just want to play more pace of play, you don't get that affected. Again, like technically, it's just there's kind of two decisions. Like number one, you can be like, okay, if you're playing this event for enjoyment, do you enjoy playing slower or faster? That's one aspect. Or you can be like, okay, what is gonna get me the most amount of boxes at the end of the weekend, or the most amount of expected value at the end of the weekend? Is it going to be to play faster and make a few mistakes, or is it going to be to play slower, get less volume in, right? But I guess what I'm trying to say is that even beyond just that quality versus quantity, there's also the endurance, right? Like I find that playing really fast, I'll just kind of lose interest or whatever. So that's just about pace of play, I guess. Keep in mind, because yeah, my main point here is that like I often feel like an urge to just play faster. I feel bad if I build a deck for too long, but when I think about it, I think that's fine. And keep in mind that if you get an urge to play faster, it's fine to take it slow. I guess another thing that would go into is like kind of simulating structure by like aiming to do a certain amount of runs a day. So sometimes I might be like, okay, I want to do 5 runs today or 6 runs today, and then the difference between that and like let's say the direct's up all weekend and you're like, oh, I just want to play as much as possible, then it's just kind of, it can be kind of weird. Like you might play too many in a row, you don't know when to stop, or you're always itching to play more, or you'll be like taking a break and you're like, should I go back and play more? Whereas if you're like, okay, my goal is to do 6 runs today, then you can be like way more, you can be happier to calm that, take a break when you have to take a break, I guess. So yeah, that's something that can help. Like if you feel like you always need to play and you get anxious about that, you can just be like, okay, my goal, like even if you want to do a lot of runs, even if it's 7-8 runs, then at least you kind of have an idea. um then let me see, I guess I'll go into that later, I guess. Yeah, see, I have some flash features up. I'll say another thing I've noticed is obviously this is an event. I mean, in all Magic events, staying calm is very, very important. Um, but in most events, you can only lose your entry fee one time. So Arena Directs are unique that you could O2 3 times in an hour or whatever. So I realized usually when I tilt, the downstream feeling is that I feel like I'm wasting my time. Like maybe I feel like I'm wasting my time because I'm not playing well. So to remedy that, I found that like writing down a mistake after making it can help me move on from it. If you make a horrible punt, it can kind of bounce around in your head. You know, you keep a brand, thinking about it. But when you write it down, it helps me externalize it, get over it. I mean, that's a famous sports thing, right? That they're like, you know, like the Federer says, like when you like if you have to shoot like 100, I don't know what it is in tennis, if you hit the tennis ball 100 times, you're going to miss like most of the times, you only need a small edge, whatever. The main point is it's really important to move on from your mistakes quickly, but part of why the like you might want to hold on to it is you're like, wait, I want to learn from my mistake. So like, yeah, kind of writing it down, externalizing it, that can help you move on, because if you don't do that, then it might bounce around in your head, at least if you're me. Another thing, oh yeah, also moving on to that is sometimes, one of the worst feelings of Magic is when you play it like a really long grindy game and you just lose and you're like, I'm sure there's something I could have done, or maybe you felt like you punted horribly. So I found that it can be useful to just go on 17 lands, look at the replay. Usually the game wasn't as bad as I thought. Like sometimes you make a mistake that you think is really horrible, but then you just watch it and it's like just not as bad as you thought. But again, helps you externalize it, helps you move on from the mistake. Um, and the other reason I feel like I might be wasting my time is just the motivation. Like, this is something I haven't tried as much, but like maybe it's just like not in the mood to play Magic that much, or yeah, you're just not that interested. So, kind of a cheesy way to make yourself interested, you can kind of try and think of ways to put yourself back in the mood. Maybe think about your favorite Magic memories, your favorite decks. Maybe like you watch LSV play a cube video and that like makes you more excited to play Magic. Maybe you think about like your favorite standard cards or standard era and how fun that was. Or like for me, I might think about my Grixis Delver deck. Um, so that stuff that just puts you back in the mood to play Magic. I mean, sometimes you can take a break, obviously, or maybe you just don't want to do it. But you know, maybe if that's something that I've found is, yeah, sometimes when you kind of lose interest in Magic, kind of like the famous example of how they would make pandas look at panda porn to get them to breed in hibernation. You can watch old LSV. You can watch like a standard feature match from 15 years ago, and maybe that'll make you more interested to play. Um, let's see. And yeah, I mean, obviously, classic cliches, like it pays to be aware of your emotional state. I mean, something that happens a lot for me in directs is like I'll play a match, I'll lose, I'll be kind of tilted. I'm like, okay, like I'm done. I'm like, I should be done for the night, but I just want to play one more to win, or you're like, you just know you're not in a great state, but you like, it's hard to make yourself not play. You know what I mean? So just trying to be aware and being like, okay, like force yourself to stop playing whatever in those things. Oh, another thing I try and do also to be more conscientious when I play is sometimes I'll pretend I'm like recording a commentary so that I have to explain my plays out loud. So like, sometimes I'll do it. I mean, I have a whole folder of me playing direct stuff where I'll just commentate on my plays, explain my reasoning, try and go into the pros and cons. That can also kind of make it more interesting, right? Because sometimes if you're playing and even if you're thinking in your head, you might not, be as meticulous as if you're actually talking out loud or trying to like explain your plays, and doing that can kind of get you the extra meticulousness that can be useful. Um, then some other stuff. I guess let's see. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll talk about building sealed pools. I mean, one thing that I found is sometimes, you export your pool from Arena. Like, usually get my pool out of Arena, get it onto sealeddeck.tech, and and you're kind of pulling out cards, but it's kind of a mishmash of a pool of all these colors. And something that I found, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but you can just sort of build like let's say you see a red black deck, so you just build a red black deck, and then you open a new tab, and then you build a blue black deck. And I just open a new tab, and I just build everything that seems reasonable. I mean, obviously there's the classic, you pull out all the cards. I like to pull out the cards that draw me to a color. Like sometimes people will just pull out playables, but I like to really be like pull out cards that are actually drawing me to the color, so that I have an idea of like what's actually drawing me to the color. Because you could take out like 10 white playables, but there's a difference between a playable and a card that's really drawing you to the color. But anyway, that's besides the point. So that's something I found that, like, yeah, if you're feeling like you're kind of staring at a pool, you don't know what to do, you can just build a deck and open a new tab, build another deck. You don't need to have to, like, think about every deck at once. And yeah, the vibe surgery is something I've realized in Magic is that And it's kind of a cliche, but doing very counterintuitive things can unlock like very big edges. I mean, the famous cliche is like you need to know the rules to break the rules, but obviously, breaking the rules can get you very far ahead. Um, but yeah, I've realized in Magic that a lot of times that if you can if there's something counterintuitive and you have like a good reason for doing it, you can get a very big edge. So um I'm not sure like a good way to put it, but it's like I feel like at my best and sealed when I feel like I can do very counterintuitive things because I have a good understanding of the format and like a good understanding of why I can do that stuff. And often you're kind of fighting against it. Like sometimes I'll have like three rares in a like three black rares, and I'll be like, okay, like I probably, or I'll give an example. Like recently I was playing Avatar and I was gonna play a 4 color deck and I had three ally tribal rares. And I'm like, okay, well, I probably just have to play it because I have three ally tribal rares. But I wasn't really like good at playing, and I had the colors because I was playing like a 4 color deck or whatever. But I just didn't have a lot of allies in it, and like in my gut, like I felt like kind of the consensus was like, oh yeah, play your rares that you have, that you can cast. But I felt like it was too hard to enable them to build around them. Like for example, one of the rares was like double triggered abilities of allies, but I didn't have that many triggered abilities, and it was also hard to cast. And it's like maybe I would rather just have like a common mediocre removal spell and draw spell and go harder on that plan. So I guess what I'm saying is like sometimes you'll feel like a really strong urge of like, oh, I have this rare, I have to play it, or like this card's really good, I have to play it. But if you really think about the strategy of your deck, you might be like, actually, my deck, even though this card's really good, maybe my deck doesn't want it for this reason. I find that's useful, and just being aware of that counterintuitive maneuvering, because yeah, part of you will be like, oh, this card's really good, I just have to play it, but another part of you will be like, what's the most powerful thing I can really do with my pile, and maybe for some reason I shouldn't do that. Let's see what else. But yeah, mostly feel empowered to do counterintuitive things. Let's see, what else do I have? Yeah, I mean, it goes back to pace of play a bit, but one of the most common mistakes that I'll make is just playing like a little bit too quickly. Um, and I don't mean like you don't want to play super slow, because honestly, like the biggest time this will come up is when you play very slow, like at the beginning of the game, and then you're low on rope, and then you're forced to play quickly. So like playing too slow will actually force you to play quickly because you run out of rope. But what I mean is like those times when it's like the end of the game and you're like, okay, I should check what are the draws in my deck, and then like because if you use the tool, the untap tool, it tells you every card in your deck, whatever, and then like you forget to check one thing. And then you lose because of it or whatever. So I guess, yeah, just like trying to be diligent at the end of the game. But often that can mean like often what happens is if you spend too much time thinking at the beginning of a game, or if you play too slowly at the beginning, then you get kind of tired or burnt out, or you run out of rope and you can't be diligent at the end. So I guess I'm trying to say kind of balance your play throughout the game. Let me see what. Yeah, so in the end, to sum it up, I guess I would say the main things you want to keep in mind is you often won't be as ahead as you think you are because rares, or like you want to rebalance your mind for the whole rare mindset, whatever. Um, then you want to keep in mind that you can stay calm, wonder what your motivation are. Like if you make a mistake, try not dwell on it. The ways that I try not dwell on it is I try and write it down, try and look at it. You know, um, I'm often surprised how taking a break doesn't untilt me. Like there'll be times where I'll make like I'll throw a direct run when I was about to get a box, and I'll be like, I can't play. I'll take a break for 3 hours, and I'm still in a bad mood after. Like, I mean, obviously, usually when I wake up the next day, then I'm reset again. But what I'm trying to say is like, if you tilt off, then trying to take the time to think through your feelings, whatever, that can help you actually get through it. And like if you're like, I'm not in the mood to play Magic, maybe you take a break for half an hour, watch a TV show, go outside, do something. But then maybe if you're like, I'm still not in the mood, then sometimes again trying to like watch old standard matches you really like, look at old decks you like, can put you in the mood. Um, and yeah, I guess that's most of it. So those are some of the tips I would give for playing directs. Um, but yeah, they are kind of a unique event because most Magic events, like you prepare for an event, and then if you lose, you're out. You can't play anymore. Directs are like one of the only events that you can keep playing all weekend. So it takes a unique amount of like perseverance, I guess I would say, or endurance. Um, or you want to put more emphasis on not just crashing out and like getting a bunch of O2s in a row and tilting off. Um, one I guess I didn't mention it now, but like one thing I found is like if I'm on a losing streak in directs, like sometimes if you like playing directs and you O2 like five or six runs in a row or whatever, and you feel like you're just burning money, throwing money away. Sometimes I'll try and like a way that I've tried to reframe that in a more positive way is I'll be like, you know, I'll try and be like, I wonder how long I can be, trying to play well, trying to build good decks, play well, and still be on a losing streak, and just not get too emotional. Like sometimes, like you build a good like sometimes something that will tell people is they build a really good deck and they're like, oh, I thought this deck's really good. Then they O2 and they're like, oh, if I can't win with that deck, then I'm off of it or whatever. Um, oh, that just ties into one other thing I would add on is about that like it's not all as like arena directs. It's not all about just getting the box. Like getting 3, 4, 5 wins matters a lot with the way the structure is. I mean, if you get 4 wins, you basically get your $40 back. I mean, that means 4 wins is like $40. 3 wins is like $18 or whatever. And if you get 5 wins, it's like getting $50. So obviously, ooh, the box is more exciting, whatever. But honestly, if you get a box, maybe you sell it for $100. If you get 5 wins, you get the $50. Obviously, it's a $10 profit versus $60 profit, whatever. Um, but I guess what I'm trying to say is like, let's say you got a really bad pool. Sometimes people will be like, oh, this pool is really bad. Like, I'm so demotivated. But if you're like, oh, let's just see if I can get to 3 wins. Like, if I get to 3 wins, I get $18 back because that makes such a big difference in your win rate at the end of your event, the EV. Because your expected value, it's not about the boxes you win. It's about your total win rate because getting the gems back matters so much. Um, yeah. So I don't know, kind of a unique event where yeah, you can just keep playing as many times as you want and whatever. I guess I'll just cut off the video here. I'll see if I have anything more to say. Uh, no, that's most of it, I guess. Um, I mean, sealed is probably also a uniquely frustrating format because number one, people usually don't have that much experience in it, so you're gonna make a lot of like kind of obvious punts that you just have to learn the first times when you're playing it. Um, and every Magic format is kind of so different, and people just have less experience with sealed, so it's just more, you know, confusing, I guess. But yeah.